Hey, Magic fans, and welcome to this episode of Penny for Your Thoughts, the podcast of the Orlando Magic UK. As always, I'm joined by Geraint Jones. G, how you doing, pal?
Very good, thank you, mate. Very excited to get one of the big personalities of the Magic organisation today. So very looking forward to this one.
And Mikey Clark. Mikey, how you doing?
I'm all right, mate. Quick question. Any injuries this week?
Nothing at all good. I'm off the injury report.
So
I'll explain that to you, George.
So what happened? What happened? You guys are getting hurt over there too? It's trickling over the ocean.
Yeah, Mikey, I'll let you go.
Well,
you say it.
Well, I was just gonna say, so now you haven't had any injuries, is it fair to say, as you put in our group last week, it's now cured, you're now cured bacon?
Cured bacon, yes, mate, yes.
and now you're also on a 3 podcast appearance streak.
Yeah.
Now you're off of Mrs. B's concussion protocol.
Yes. George, just to let you know, in the past 3 weeks, I've broke my nose, gave myself concussion from hitting my head on a extractor fan, and also cut through my little finger nail with some wire cutters. So this is why. And
your calf.
Yeah, I injured my calf kicking not kicking, but accidentally scuffing on a tree root, which injured my calf as well. So
keep your head down, Paul. You got to lower your head. You lower your head down.
I won't mind, but I'm less than 6 foot. So how the hell I do it? I've no idea. Moving on from the story of my inability to stay out of injuries. This week we are joined by a really special guest, a man who's in his 26th season with the Orlando Magic, currently serving as Senior Director of Communications, familiar face to many of us and voice as one of the co-hosts of the team's official podcast, the Orlando Magic Pod Squad, also co-host of Magic Overtime with Drive Time, wasn't it? Magic Drive Time?
No, that's Dante Show's Drive Time. There's so many shows, Paul. It gets confusing.
Was it Magic Overtime?
It was Magic Overtime. Yeah, it was Magic Overtime.
So it's a huge welcome to George Galante. George, thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate this.
No, thank you guys. I told you before we started recording, like my kids are very impressed that I'm on a podcast in England. They're very impressed. So I gotta put my best foot forward here.
So before we move on, we always like to do this. Would you mind just going through a little bit about yourself and your role with the team, so people who don't know you get to know you a little bit better?
Sure. Yeah, like you said, this is my 26th year with the organization, which is crazy to think about when you take a step back. I started as an intern in the summer of 1994. In the communications department. Alex Martins was actually the director of communications at that point. And I was an intern, and that just happened to be the year that we first went to the finals. Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, that whole crew. And it was a good time to be in the organization. It was growing at a really alarming rate. Like we were hiring a lot of people because we were skyrocketing at that point. And I actually was up for 2 jobs at one point when coming off of my internship. And it was a job with the Magic as a coordinator in the PR department. And then we also were bringing on the Solar Bears, which was a minor league hockey team. We have the Solar Bears now, which is a minor league hockey team. But at that point in 1995, it was in the International Hockey League. And so there was a PR job open with the Solar Bears, and I was up for both positions, and I ended up not getting the Magic job because they had they had a few interns that had left before me. I was just 21 at the time, and there was a couple of interns that had left before me that I'm sure that, obviously made a good impression on them, and they, if they had any openings, they would bring them back in. So I didn't get the Magic job, which at first I was really disappointed about. But I did get the job with the hockey team, which was still in the, in the umbrella, so to speak. And I did 4 years with the hockey team, which was great. It ended up actually being a blessing because I got to we had a much small, the staff of a minor league hockey team is about an eighth of what it is for an NBA or an NHL or big club. And so I got to do so many more things that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do if I would have had that Magic job. You know, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to control a budget or make a media guide from scratch. You know, I was a department of one. And so it was just the opportunity to do things and to get experience under my belt for when the time did come in 1990, gosh, all my years run together now, 1998, when there was an opening. Alex Martins had actually left the Magic to go take a job with the Cleveland Browns. And Joel Glass, who is still here, who's the chief communications officer, he was promoted to the head of the department, and that left an opening in his old role. And I was fortunate enough to, you know, at that point, I felt confident that I could do the job, and I went for the job. And I had the advantage of being in the organization already for 4 years, and I got that job, and I've been doing it ever since. So it's I've gotten to see a lot of very, very cool things, and been a part of some good teams and some not good teams. And I feel like I've seen, well, that's not true. Like I say this every time. It's like, well, what else could I possibly, you know, experience or do? And then it just, this game and this life just proves to me every day. It's like, well, like you haven't seen everything yet. Like you haven't seen a pandemic, or you know, like you haven't gone through this and that. And so you haven't done press conferences over Zoom. And so it's been a real blessing to have this job for 26 years now. And hopefully I can keep it until they get tired of seeing my face. So that's the plan.
There's been some huge challenges for you, and we're going to come on to some of those in a bit, because we do want to find out more. What we'll do now is we'll have a quick roundup of Magic news for the week. I don't suppose result-wise it's been that brilliant, but we'll come on to that in a moment. We'll start with the injury list as normal. No change to Jonathan Isaac and Markel Fultz. Otto Porto has been out with a foot injury. Michael Carter-Williams has been out with an ankle injury. He's likely to miss multiple games. Terence Ross is listed as day-to-day, questionable with back spasms. James Ennis III is also listed day-to-day and questionable with a calf injury. And finally, we lost Wendell Carter Jr. for the visit of the Pelicans, and he's now listed as day-to-day also with an ankle issue. Robert Franks signed to a second 10-day contract. I'll put my teeth in and get things right. He's been playing quite well, I think. I think he's earned that second contract, so good luck to the guy. Recapping the week. So we had a 114-110 loss to the Rockets. 6-point lead at half time, but a 32-18 third quarter saw us playing catch up afterwards. Avery Bradley sunk 2 free throws with 7 seconds remaining to seal the margin of victory. 15-point differential on 3-point shooting really hurt us that night. Magic leaders were Dwayne Bacon, cousin Dwayne, with 22 points. 10 rebounds for Wendell Carter, who also had 11 points, so got a double-double. 9 assists and 2 blocks for Cole Anthony, and Chuma Okeke weighed in with 4 steals, which is really good number in a game. Christian Wood was superb for them. 25 points and 10 rebounds for his double-double. The Hawks, 96-12. We had no answer for their starters. Trae Young, Clint Capella really played well. Lou Williams hit 22 points from the bench. Close first quarter, and then second quarter we dropped 24-38, 17 down at halftime, and we were just swept aside after that. Cole Anthony led us with 17 points, 8 assists. Wendell Carter with 17 points and 9 rebounds. And then finally, the Pelicans, again, we took a beating, 135-100. We were absolutely battered in the paint. Early second quarter, we had a lead, but a 21-5 run saw the Pelicans end the contest, really. 38-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson really did bully us that night. Devin Kennedy and Mo Bamba both made 17 points, and Cole Anthony scored double figures for the 7th time in 8 games since his return. So I think that kind of sums up the week. It's not been the best. But Mikey, thoughts on Cole Anthony's progress? How do you think he's doing?
I think overall during the season, I think he's taken good steps, especially since the last 10 games since he's come back from the injury. I was having a look at some of his numbers earlier. I feel like the one area that, and this just doesn't apply to Cole, this applies to the whole team at the moment, is they all need to get better defensively. We saw Steve Clifford after the Pelicans game turn around and say, none of these young players are going to develop whilst we're getting blown out by 35 points. So as a team, everybody needs to get better defensively. He's still struggling a little bit with his 3-point shot. And I think some of that is now we haven't got Vooch on the team. Teams aren't so worried about honing in on Vooch as the main offensive threat. So teams are being a little bit more even who they're defending out on the perimeter. So I feel like he's probably forcing a little bit more than he should. And I think that's probably said for the rest of the team. But a couple of positives that I looked into is finishing around the basket's got a lot better since he's come back from his injury. I had a look at his numbers earlier. Within 5 feet, he's shooting nearly 60% from the field. He was at 48 before his injury, and within 5 to 9 feet, he's at 50%, and he was at 26% before his injury. So he's taken a couple of big jumps finishing around the basket. And the other things is assist to turnover ratio. Before his injury, so the first 25 games, he was about 20th amongst rookies in assist to turnovers. But since then, he's now jumped up to 6th in the last 10 games. So his assists are trending in the right direction. He's actually pretty good with looking after the ball. He only has about 1 or 2 turnovers per game. So that's something Steve Clifford likes in point guards. So yeah, I think on the whole, he's trending in the right direction. He's only played 35 games in the career, hasn't he? So in this season, so he's taken the steps we want. We just got to try and keep this team as competitive as we can the last 13 games, because these players aren't going to develop as much as we want without that happening.
Let's be honest.
Have you been using David Steele's login for his deep dive?
Grant beat me to it. You guys are so prepared. So many numbers. I'm like, somebody actually reads our notes. It's nice.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Our broadcasters
We're all
sometimes don't
over
read the notes, but you guys read them. That's
week,
good.
honestly.
That's
yeah,
good.
honestly, George, we are all over the stuff that you guys produce.
You are. You're got more stuff than I give out. That's great. That's perfect.
I was also going to say that Cole's assist rate would be far better if we were shooting better. If some of the guys were actually making this,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
When we make baskets, your assist numbers go up. That's usually how it works,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Gary Harris, he had a particularly strong game against Atlanta. How do you feel he's settling in?
Yeah, he's done pretty good, in fairness to him. You know, he's only played, how many games has he played? 7 or 8? He's averaging 8 games. Averaging just over 11 points a game, shooting 50% on the 3, 82% of the line, 1 turnover. He's that leader, that veteran leader. Now, granted, he's only 26 in his 6th or 7th year in the NBA. He's one of the elder statesmen, like you, Paul, of the team. So he's really there as a hand to guide a lot of these younger players along. I think other than him, you know, you look at the other ages of the players. Michael Carter-Williams, 29, Ennis, 30, Bacon's 25, Ross is 30. Other than that, I mean, Randall's 28, Porter 27. But he is someone who's got the NBA experience that you see it on the court. You saw him, I can't remember which game it was. It was probably the Pelicans game when Van Gundy was pulling the Pelicans together just to have a little huddle when Jackson Hayes got some blood. And Harris was doing the exact same in our side of the court with the young guys. And that's good to see, you know, just telling them things that he's seeing with all the experience that he has. So him being signed for this year and next, albeit 20 million, he's going to be a key part of the locker in bringing, you know, the franchise back up to where it should be. George,
got to ask you this. How excited the organisation for this rebuild process that we're now going into?
You know, as much as it pained us to say goodbye to Vooch and to Evan and to Aaron, I think, you know, it got to a point where the organization had to take an honest look with ourselves and see where we were and where we were going. And, did we have the right pieces in place? The goal of our organization is to compete for championships. And we haven't done that, in 10 years, ever since Dwight left and we had the complete rebuild with Rob Hennigan. We haven't been in that situation, and that still just remains our focus. And I think we had to take a hard look at ourselves and take an honest look at ourselves. Steve Clifford has done an amazing job with what, think about, that's the same core that was here for 4 other coaches. But Steve's the one that has gotten that core to the playoffs. Now, granted, I can understand where fans get frustrated where, we made the first round and you win a game and then you're out. We get that, but at the same time, it's, it took a long time to get that group to that spot. But I think that we had to take an honest look at where we were going and what that group could accomplish in the future. And if there was ever a chance to maximize, the draft prospects and take a reset, this was the time to do it. And so we're definitely looking forward to what lies ahead. I think we have some nice young pieces that we can build around. And also we now have a little more flexibility that we have not had in the last 7 or 8 years. We have not had any flexibility whatsoever in terms of draft capital or roster movement. We've been really locked into what we were for a while now, and these moves give us some flexibility. And if you look at just take next year's draft alone, if everything holds form where it is right now, we're poised to have 2 picks in the top 10. I think in a draft that is where everybody's excited about the prospects of what lies ahead with that draft. I think if we're that team that has 2 picks in the top 10, and then you take a Markelle Fultz healthy and a Jonathan Isaac healthy and a Wendell Carter Jr., Cole Anthony, Chumo Kiki, we have some nice young pieces that we can finally, start to build around that young nucleus and see where that takes us. And it just gives us a little more flexibility for the future. So, we're looking forward to where, this plan is going to take us. Hopefully it can take us to where we think it can.
Yeah. George, sorry, Paul.
No, very much.
Go. Do you feel like we're further along in this rebuild, even though we've just essentially blown the roster up, than we ever were under Rob before?
Mikey, that's a good question, because we've done a lot of second guess. We spend a lot of time together. David and myself, JT, Dante, and we, you talk about a lot of things, and even internally in the office amongst everybody. And, when we were rebuilding back in 2012, if you take a look back at some of the picks, and some of the moves, we picked Victor Oladipo and we traded for Tobias Harris and we got Vooch in the trade. So, it wasn't necessarily, we were probably headed in that right direction then too. Now you can definitely point to where the things maybe went sideways and I don't want to dwell on any of those, because we all know where they are. But then you come back to present day, and I think it's hard, Mikey, because we're definitely starting again, at near where that was, to say we're ahead of where we were in 2013. I don't know if that would be accurate, because you're taking a team that made the playoff, I had this conversation with Bob Byer, who is an assistant coach under Stan Van Gundy now in New Orleans, who was an assistant coach with us. And I saw him after the game on Thursday night, and we were just talking about the team and the Magic, and he just said, he said, making the playoffs is hard. Everybody just takes for granted, you're a playoff team. Even you're the 8 seed. Well, guys, making the 8 is hard. Making that 8 is hard. And, we were there the last 2 years. We were a playoff team. We're clearly not a playoff team right now. So to say we're further along, I don't know if that's accurate. I will say that I do think that Jeff and John do have an idea of where they want to go and where they want to take this. And I think making the moves that they made at the trading deadline sets us up to start those in motion. And then, we'll hopefully ping pong balls and things, we don't need the number one pick, but you just need to make the right pick. It just needs to be the right player. Yeah. And hopefully, we have enough guys in that room that know what we're looking for and what we want to do and what fits the best. And hopefully when we have these two picks that are hopefully, like, knock on wood, in the top 10 of this draft, we can start to lay the foundation. We can just start to see how that goes. Now, the other thing with that being said, I don't want to be long-winded here, is even if we get the number 1 and number 5 pick in this draft, right? That doesn't necessarily, that'd be amazing, right? That'd be amazing. But like, that doesn't necessarily equate to, well, hell, the Magic are bang, we're right back in the playoffs next year. We're going to be a top 4 seed. Like,
I agree.
You got to take a look back into NBA history. I mean, you could take a look just at Magic history, right? We had Dwight Howard, the first pick in the draft in 2004. Okay. Shoot, you can go all the way back to Shaquille O'Neal first. And that's Shaquille O'Neal, guys. Like, this is arguably a top 10 player in the history of the NBA, Shaquille O'Neal. We drafted him first in 1992, right? Did we make the playoffs the next year? No, like, we missed the playoffs. We didn't make the playoffs. You have Dwight Howard, first overall pick in 2004. And this is a guy that is umpteen time All-Star, 3-time defensive player of the year consecutively. It took us 3 years to make the playoffs after having Dwight and Jameer on our team. It took 3 years. You take LeBron James with the Cavs. LeBron James is arguably a top 5 player in the history of basketball. The Cavs didn't make the playoffs for 2 years when they picked LeBron James. Yeah. So these guys that are, I've seen all the names. I've seen the Mobleys and the Cunninghams, and, this guy's going to take us to, save us, Cade, and all this, I've seen all of it. And it's great. It's good, but you just have to know that as much as we want to hurry back, and we will, like, we believe us, we don't want to sit in the lottery for year after year after year. We don't. That's not why anybody gets into the game. However, for it to be an instant fix,
doesn't happen.
Historically, it doesn't happen. Historically, it just doesn't happen. So it's going to take some time.
And it's good to hear somebody actually say that from within the organization, because people do seem to think that we get a number 1 pick or we get the number 2 pick and it's bang, instant solution. It's far from it. It is a rebuild process. I just think history, if you look back at history and you can take any team, and it just doesn't we want it to happen. Don't get me wrong. I want to pick whoever we're picking it. Let's say we pick 3 and 8 and like that, shoot, that's great. And we pick those guys and they come in right away and they're amazing ball players. Like, yeah, we want to win. Like, we want to win, but there's no guarantee that that's just going to happen overnight. It just historically has not happened that way. Yeah. Well, that leads us nicely into where we want to talk about the lottery position. Orlando record is 18-41. We're 14th in the East and 4th worst record within the NBA, which gives us a 12.5% chance of the number 1 pick in the draft lottery at this moment in time. And it would appear to me, in looking at it, that the odds for the best lottery odds have reduced down to 6 teams now. So guys, what I'm wanting to know is where you see us ending up and what your thoughts are on the current position and the race. So George, can I ask you first?
Sure.
What's your thoughts on where we're likely to end up?
I don't know, to say, listen, Cliff wants to win every game.
Absolutely.
I know it may.
I should have said that we are perfectly clear that the team are not tanking. They are not actively tanking. We're playing through injuries and we are in a rebuild process. We've got lots of young players and the guys that are new to the team.
Cliff has made it very clear. And I think he's actually said what he said after the last press conference against the Pelicans. He said it multiple times in games where, we haven't shown up, and that's not the way that Cliff and the team want to, develop any young guys. Like you don't necessarily get developed by running out onto the floor and playing 26 minutes and you put up 10 and 6. Like that's not the way you develop guys. So, Cliff wants to win these games. Now, whether roster wise, we will have the talent and the ability to match up with some of these teams, that remains to be seen. The schedule down the street, the schedule is not pretty when you take a peek at it. I mean, I'm looking at it right above my computer here, and I see Indiana, and I see the Lakers, and I see Memphis twice, and I see Boston and Philly twice, and Milwaukee and Atlanta. Like it's not great. It's not great, but I can tell you that Cliff's going to do everything he can to get these guys to prepare and to win a game. Like that's the bottom line. Every time we're on the schedule, we're playing the game to win.
Rightly so, in my opinion. Rightly so. Mikey, what about yourself?
I know that didn't answer your question. I know that was a PR way to answer the question. So.
We've said it before. We are very, very cool with somebody from the organisation having to answer in a certain way. We understand. It's all good. It's not a problem.
All right.
Well, the pro tankers might be happy with what I'm gonna predict. My theory's a little bit flawed in that I've looked at all the 5 teams in the bottom 5. So Houston, Minnesota, Detroit, Orlando, Oklahoma City. The other 4 teams have got 12 games left. We've got 13. And I've just done it on a theory of you beat teams under 500, you lose against the teams over 500. Just that's going by the averages. So I've got us finishing with the 3rd worst record, leapfrogging Detroit, as well as Oklahoma City doing the same thing. So I've got Detroit finishing 5th, OKC 4th, us 3rd, with Minnesota and Houston last. So
that's it. Mikey's got it all figured out. We're good.
That's it.
You can just go right. I can go play on my summer now. We're all set.
That's interesting because that's exactly where I am. That's exactly where I am as well. I think that Detroit move up. I think we drop below them, but who knows? Who knows? When I say move up, I mean that their record gets better, and they have a lesser odds than us. It's confusing to talk about, isn't it? G?
Yeah. How many wins was that then, Mikey? So I can compare against mine.
So I've got us going. So 13 games, 5 teams. So let's say we win 4 or 5 more games.
Okay. Well, I went through it just like you did. I've got us beating the Pistons, the Timberwolves, and another. I'd like that to be the Los Angeles Lakers because of my feelings towards that franchise.
Obviously.
But the other one, maybe the Charlotte Hornets. So my friend Lewis Hageman might not be happy about that, but there we go. So I can see us winning 3 more, and we'll be in and around where we are. There's not much in it, is there? So teams, they can just pick up wins whenever. So 3rd or 4th. Doesn't really matter. And the ping pong balls will decide anyway, like George has said.
Absolutely. We keep saying this.
And the odds have flattened out in the draft now. So if you look at it, it's almost a coin flip, whether you get a top 4 pick or not. That's what it boils down to. But hey, let's just play the games and see where the chips lie.
I was just interested to see where everybody saw us finishing up. So I think we'll drop. I do think we'll drop into that bottom 3. So on to that time of the week where we talk to our guest, George. So obviously we know that you spend a lot of time on the road with the team. What is currently involved on a trip, and is it still fun?
No, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It's not.
The honesty.
Going on the road during these times, it's tough. We're not allowed to do a whole lot. We're not really allowed to, when the season started, we weren't allowed to leave the hotel at all. Like once we got from, the first thing is we're all, I don't want to say we're monitored, but they give us these chips so they can track, should they have to go back, say somebody ends up testing positive at some point down the line, Well, these chips, I guess, they can go back and they can track your contact tracing. Okay, well, you were with person A, it's a little frightening. Like it's a little it's a little scary.
Big Brother's watching you.
But yeah, a little bit. So that's their, but it's all within the name of safety. They can do their way to contact trace. So, but you go from the plane to the bus to the hotel, and you're in the hotel for the duration of your stay. Like I'm from New York originally, and I always love going back to New York. And I was on the trip at the beginning of the year to go to New York, and I never left my hotel. We were there for 3 days, and I never left the room. And that's when it really like kicked me in the butt. I was just like, God, this sucks. Like I just want to go. Like you couldn't even go for a walk. Like we're not even allowed to go for a walk. So then as the season went on, they loosened the protocols a little bit to where, we're allowed to leave the hotel for exercise, code for a walk, for an hour, and you have to be back by 6 p.m. So it's like, oh, thanks for that. Like, appreciate that. So at least you can go breathe some fresh air, and, and it's we're in the nicest hotels there are too. So it's not like you're holed up in a really bad place. Like if we're holed up, we're in the nicest places possible, but you just want I just want to go outside and see the sun. Like I just want to go breathe a little fresh air. So it and then the other thing is too, like for me is that, and is nothing against the guys that are on the road, like, but you can't hang out. Like you can't, a big part of the road for us is, going to restaurants or going to a bar, and having that camaraderie, whether it's David, Jeff, Dante, our equipment staff, our trainers, Jacob Diamond and Sid Powell and our training staff, like that's where your bonding time is. And there's just none of that. And in the beginning of the beginning of this season, I was very leery. I'm more of a worrier. And so at the very beginning of this thing, like I was terrified. I didn't want, we have a meal room, and I would get my food and I would sprint back to my room because I was just like, I don't want to, and the other part of it is at least I can only speak for myself. Like, I don't want to be the guy that like brings the ship down. Like, I don't want to be like, well, George Galante tested positive. Like, I guess we're, and I don't want to be the guy that brings it down. And so, I'd get my food and I'd run back up to my room and I'd, eat by myself. And that's just not typically what I'm used to on the road. Like I like to go hang out, and I like to go, grab a beer, or just, if there's, especially this year, like we have a whole lot of new trainers like that I don't really know that well. And the time to do that would be, on the road and on the downtime, if there is a little downtime. And there's just none of that. And the other thing is like my running mates are not allowed on the trips with us this year. Like I hang with Dante and Ty Eastham, our TV producer, and David and Jeff. Those are my main guys, and they're all not around. So it's tough. It's it sucks for them because I know they want to be out on the road with the team. And it sucks for me just because I like hanging out with those guys and I enjoy their company. So I've not had that for 13 months now on the road. It sucks.
And I would imagine that whereas normally it's a team working, every facet of the job falls to yourself.
Yeah, like there's tiers of how they're that's the way. Like I'm considered tier 2. It's on my credential. I have a big 2, and the people that are on staff that are considered tier 1 and tier 2, those are your, I don't know how else to describe it. That's your, like, for example, the players and the coaches are tier 1, and the trainers are tier 1, and then I'm tier 2. And so tier 1 and tier 2 are the core people they're traveling, they're around the team all the time, this, that, and the other. I have people in my own department that are not considered tier 2. So when Joel Glass or myself are in the building, they can't be in the building. Like it's just a, yeah, really? Like for today, for example, today's Saturday when we're recording this, and it's a practice day. And we have two other people in our department, the communications department, Trish Wingerson and Owen Sanborn. They're not tier 2, so they can't be in the building. They can't be, in the practice facility while we're here. You have to be, those people are not tested every day. Like we've been tested every day since November 26th, every day. And so those people have not been tested. They get tested for games. There's a whole different, there's so many different protocols that go for so many different layers of the staff. There's a layer for tier 3 that's a different layer than our game night staff. That's a different layer than the ushers and the concession work. Like it's wild. It really is wild. It's something that I never ever thought I would experience. And yeah, like it does. You're sick of. I'm sick of getting a swab up my nose every day. I can be honest and tell you about that.
Having your brain tickled.
Yeah, like luckily they're not like I've seen the videos of the real deep ones where they get you right up into your eye sockets. Like I haven't had any of those, but I'm definitely, when this is all over and if I never see another Q-tip again, I'll be fine with that. So
my daughter teaches, and we know whether it's sneezing or gagging exactly where she is doing the test at that moment in time.
That's right. And you got to pick the right tester too, because you get some of them like we see the same people now. So I know I kind of gravitate toward the ones that I know are a little more gentle with the swabs, a little more gentle with the swabs.
Cool. George, take us back to the 21st of January. You're on the road in Minnesota. Cole Anthony hits that game winner. We see him sprinting off the court.
Yeah.
We see you thinking, oh no, where's he going? Get him back. Can you take us through that moment?
Sure. That's a good one.
The celebration and the locker room afterwards. Of course, we saw the locker room, and that looked like a great place to be.
Yes. Okay. So we'll start with the chase down, right? Okay. So at that point, I'm always in communication with Dante and with our producer about obviously if we lose, we don't do any interviews right off the floor, and those only happen if we win. And so he tells me ahead of time, where we're going or who we want to interview or whatever else. And at that point, I think we were up 2, right? At the time we were up 2 when he hit the 3, or were we tied?
We were down 2.
Down 2. I mean, down 2, and his
down 2,
we made us up 1. And so at that point, we had just kind of said, all right, should somebody hit the game winner, that's the guy we go get. And I've been in those situations before where to corral the guy, I mean, you can kind of go back and see some video. There's actually another video where Tobias Harris, I don't remember what year it was, Tobias Harris hits a game winner. This is 4 or 5 years ago. And
OKC?
It was a home game. It might have been the OKC. I don't know if it was the dunk or whatever, but it is a shot where it looks like I'm in the huddle celebrating with the team. And all that I'm doing is trying to grab the guy and make sure he doesn't run off, run into the locker room so I can get him over to Dante. And that's a lot easier to do under normal times because hey, look, Dante's on the court, the camera's on the court, there's people everywhere. That's a little easier to do. But I've been in those situations where I have to corral the guy and make sure he doesn't run off and whatever else. So I felt like I was in a pretty good place. I positioned myself. I knew where our tunnel was. Our tunnel was right behind the basket. So I was all right, I'm in a good place here. I got this covered. And I also don't think in my head that this kid's going to just sprint and rear back to the locker room. I'm but I got it. I'm okay. So I'm watching the scene unfold, and they crowd Cole over by the bench, and they're doing their thing, whatever else. And then all of a sudden, Cole gets the great, and I'm thinking, all right, I have time. I can get out there, because I've also learned from the Tobias Harris thing. It's I don't want to look like I'm in there yeah, guys, way to go. That's not my place. I'm happy, but I don't want, so I'm trying to keep my step back. And then all of a sudden I see him he stops celebrating and then just puts his head down and just runs. And I was oh crap, I gotta go. So I made contact. I think I'd have to go back and look at it. I think I did make contact initially, and he went past me. And I said, I'm also have the, like, keep in mind too, like I have the mask on too, and you can't hear that great with what's going on. And I'm going, TV, we got TV to do. We got TV. You can't see what I'm saying. He's looking at me like, what? And now I'm sprinting because he's still, and luckily it's a pretty, like that hallway goes back and around to our locker room. And so like, I had time to like, you know, I wasn't stretched, like I'm old now. Like I you know, so I had to kick it into high gear to chase him down, and I'm yelling at him, no, like, let's go get TV. He's like, what do we have to do? Come on, we just want to get, I mean, no, like, let's go do it. He's like, all right, let's go. And now I'm pulling him back out to the court. Now on the way back, now all the other guys are like coming in. So I'm trying to pull him back out to the court. I got every guy coming, smacking him on the head, hitting him in the chest, way to go, this and that, the other. Like, so I finally made him out. I got him out to Dante. And then that interview, he was obviously pretty hyped up. Like he got a lot of fans that night, I think, because
it's one of the best post-game interviews.
Yeah, he was so brilliant. Genuine. He was so just genuine. And I think that snapped like a 5 or 6 game losing streak for us too. We hadn't won in a
6.
while. Yeah. Is that what it was? It was 6. And so like he was, and as his first game winner in the NBA, like he was, and rightfully so, like he was on cloud 9. And so like he got I think he made a lot of fans that night that hadn't really heard from Cole or knew much about Cole. So that was a good thing. And then we go back from the, you know, he's done with his TV interview, and those are awkward now too, by the way, because, you know, on the normal times, Dante is physically there with the player and he's standing right next to him, talking to him. Now we have to, there's camera, you know, like it's the normal high camera that's shooting the game for like that you see on TV, but it's the normal high cameras. We have a headset and we have to try to find the camera that's, you know, that's up top. It's on like the mid-level. So I got to tell Cole or whoever it is, I'm like, listen, like that's you know, like, and I'm pointing way up to the concourse and there's a red light and there's a camera guy and he's standing there going like this and he's trying to tell you where to look. So I'm like, all right, that's, you know, and he has to talk to, like, it's not easy. Like you can see, if you watch these post-game interviews, like it's not easy to do just because there's nobody to look at. He's just looking at space. So we're trying our best to make it work. So he's done with the interview and we go back to the locker room. He's still pretty amped up. And then we open up the door to go, and everybody obviously is already in at that point. There's nobody, he's the last one. He and I are the last ones. And he goes into the locker room and I had kind of stayed out the door. And then all of a sudden you could just see the water, like the water started, you know, they all got him when he walked into the door. The water, you know, came out and they were all pumped up. And it was a good moment. You know, we actually, and then we got in trouble from the league because none of us, like, you know, you're supposed to have your masks on at this point. Like, and we put that out on, so we're like, oh, like, this is a great moment. Like, you know, and then the NBA calls him like, oh, you can't do that. I was like, all right, like, it's okay. So, but yeah, that was that was definitely a high moment for the season for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah. It was like watching you play man-to-man coverage as a cornerback trying to get Cole down.
I got toasted though. I got beat bad. I needed to stay lower in my stance, I think, to keep him in front of me. I did not do Cliff was not happy with my defense on that possession. Not happy.
Cliff is never happy with anybody's defense.
He has very high expectations, Coach Clifford. Very high expectations.
So one happy story to a more somber story. Can you tell us what it was like those few days before the NBA shut down? Because we were coming off that big win in Memphis.
Yeah, no, I was on that trip. It was a 4-game trip or a 3-game trip. We had played in Miami, I believe, and we lost a tough game. Like that was a tough game. And then, gosh, we went somewhere.
I think we went Houston, Minnesota,
and we that's what it was. Memphis. And it was Houston, and we beat them down. We beat Houston down. And we went to Minnesota and we won that game pretty handily. And then we had the game in Memphis, which was a real, and, you know, and we had started to hear when we got to Memphis was when this was all like kind of hitting its height. And I remember going to lunch that day. We went to lunch at this place in Memphis that we typically go to. David, myself, Jeff, and Dante, the 4 of us were at lunch. And I got phone calls from Joel Glass and from the NBA, like telling us that the protocols and things that we were doing and dealing with the media that night were going to change in regards to, we weren't going to open the locker rooms, and we were going to bring everybody into a press conference room, but they had to stay like 10 feet, all kinds of different things. And you're just sitting here just going like, well, what's going on? Like, this is, and we knew what was going on with the virus. I mean, we were watching it, and, it was kind of, just like everybody, just like you guys over there too. It's just like, you see it, it's taking over every part of the news, and it's very hard to avoid. And I actually remember Jason Wallace is the Memphis PR person, and he used to work for me and Joel here in Orlando. So we're very close. And so I remember we were talking the night before, and we were joking around, like, cause we would get these media packets. We used to get these media packets at the hotel that had like game notes and everybody's credentials and things of that nature to hand out for the game. And I remember joking around with them, like, don't put coronavirus in my packet. Ha ha ha. Like, just you didn't really know you didn't know the magnitude and how serious this was going to be. And then it comes like later that, the next day is when all these protocols come out, and you're starting to see things on the news. And then, so, we had the game that night in Memphis. We won another good game. And we were really, to say we were playing our best basketball, easily playing our best basketball. And I really do. I agree. And if you looked at our schedule, the schedule was really poised for us to make a run. And we were already on the run. We won, I think at that point we had won 4 of 5 or 5 of 6 or something to that effect. It was definitely 3 in a row. And the games that we had after that were a lot of games against teams that had nothing to play for. And we had a lot of home games also on the tail end of that too. We were really poised. But listen, I'm not going to sit here and say we were going to get into the top 3 or 4, but like we were really positioned to advance our standing, come toward the playoffs, and also hit our stride and maybe cause some damage in a first round against whoever we end up getting matched up with, right? So they change all the protocols for that night with the media. And I just remember a lot of confusion, even just with our own people. Like, we had people that, fly on the plane with us and just be, like our internal broadcasters and our, I think John Denton from Magic.com at the time was, we're all flying together, and they're all like, let me get this straight. Like, I can fly on the plane with you guys and ride on the bus, but I can't get within 15 feet of you at the arena. And I'm just sitting there just going, guys, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm just abiding by, like, just do what we say, just abide by the rules. Like, but this is what the rules are. I don't make them, but let's just get through it and we'll figure it out. And I remember we got through the night, and and even the players, we didn't really know what was next. We didn't know what was going to happen. But we knew things were going in the wrong direction. You just could feel it. And then we were supposed to play Chicago. It wasn't the next night. It was 2 days afterwards, because we were coming off the trip. So we had an off day, and then we were supposed to play the Bulls at home. And I think we were all in a very similar situation where we're all in our homes. And I had the game, the OKC Utah game on, because it was ESPN, and they broke in and said that that game was canceled. And then right then and there, we all knew what was coming next, and that we knew that our game was going to be canceled and that the league was going to get shut down. And it was crazy.
An hour holiday, George.
What's that?
An hour holiday, a 5-game homestand.
Yeah. Oh, it was your holiday too?
Yeah.
Yeah, we planned to come over for 5 home games, and Mikey, myself, our families, and that got cancelled.
No.
4 days before we were supposed to fly out.
And on top of that, we were supposed to be covering one of the games. We had media passes for one of the games.
Passes to them, right? We did, right? I remember that. So did you guys did you even get on the plane, or did you?
No.
Oh, okay, good. No. Well, that would have been worse if you came on the plane and then got like, what would you have done? You got stuck here. That wouldn't be good. That'd be terrible.
Oh, that'd be great.
See, I was gonna say there's worse places to get stuck.
Yeah.
There's the guy drinking a Bud Light during the podcast.
There you go.
Absolutely.
It'd be great.
My next door neighbours got stuck in Australia for 3 months.
Is that
They couldn't
right?
get a flight back.
That's,
so yeah,
that's, I mean, as cool as that sounds, that's not what you want. You don't,
No.
you don't want that. You don't want that.
They said there were huge pros and there were a whole lot more cons to it.
Yeah, that sucks. But it it was weird. The whole scene was odd. And it was a weird time. It was a weird time.
So from one day of confusing activity to another of full-on activity, the trade deadline this year, where we just press that red button.
Yeah.
So I'm just interested to know how challenging it was for yourself and your team, the timelines involved, and particularly if there was any extra work or considerations around the trade of Vooch, considering his position with the team and the fans.
Yeah, I mean, we going into the deadline, we're in pretty good communication with our basketball operations department, and we have an idea of what's going to go down. I left. We played the night before. We played Phoenix. And, listen, stranger things have happened all through the years. Like, we've been told trades are going to happen and we make press releases and they never happen. And it happens way more than you think. It happens a lot where just listen, like things get to the end and it breaks down and then it just doesn't happen. So you're like, okay, well that, I have press release. Well, I've started deleting them because I had press releases of trades that never happened, and I should have probably kept them and put them in a file and made a nice book. But
interesting.
but you had an idea, that Evan was probably going to go, and you had an idea that Aaron was probably going to go, and I didn't really, and we'd never really gotten, I had never really gotten much confirmation other than just to be ready, and those guys were obviously. But on the flip side of that, you've seen their names in trade rumors since the minute they walked through this door for 6 years. Yeah. It's always like the Magic are going to trade Vucevic, the Magic are going to trade for, and it's never happened. And so you kind of just wait until it does happen to start any work, because I'm the one that ends up writing the press releases to send out to the media. And so I hadn't written anything. I kind of just was like, I'm going to wait until, because I didn't want to add any more things, like I don't want to do a couple hours worth of work just to have nothing happen. So I've learned my lesson over the years. And so I just kind of had waited, and I went that morning very early, like at 6 something in the morning, to go get my daily COVID test. And which I have to drive down to the arena. And then I live about 15-20 minutes away from the arena. And so I got my oldest son off to school, came down to the arena to get my COVID test, started driving back. And I got a phone call that said, well, like, we're going to be busy today. And I went, okay, like how busy? And Joel Glass said, very busy, extremely busy. Like he said, we traded Evan, we've traded Aaron, and we're going to trade Nick. And that one, you're never surprised, only because you just, I feel like anybody can be traded. And so you knew that there was a possibility that if, like I said to you at the top of the show, it's like, at some point we had to take a good, honest look at where we were and what we were doing, and where we were headed. And if there was a time to get something for Nikola Vucevic, we felt like now was the time to do it. And so so he told me that Vuce had gotten traded. And so, that press release was a little longer than the other ones, only because, I felt like, Vuce had done so much for the organization over 9 years. And really, when we look back, take a step back 5 years, 10 years from now, he's going to be in the discussion of, there's nobody right now that's over, like we call it the Mount Rushmore of Magic, right? It's Dwight Howard, Tracy McGrady, Penny Hardaway, and Shaquille O'Neal, right? Like that's your Mount Rushmore, your top 4. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And then there's an argument always for number 5, right? There's always an argument for number 5. Well, maybe it's Hito Turkoglu is the 5th best player, or maybe Nick Anderson is the 5th best player.
It's Nick.
Okay, well, I can tell by your background there between the number 50, like maybe you're thinking Cole Anthony's in there, but so like is it Nick Anderson? Is it Jameer Nelson? Is it Hito Turk? I mean, you can make an argument for like all of those guys that are right around that top 4. I do think when we look back, the things that Nick Vucevic did while he was here with the Magic, like they won't go unnoticed. He really, this was a guy that gave everything he had to the organization. I mean, just think about all the things he had to overcome, even while he was here. I mean, we signed Bismack Biyombo. We drafted centers. Like there's all these things that he just kept having to overcome. And not only did he overcome them, he was named an all-star, and then he was named an all-star again. Like that is not an easy thing to do, especially for a team where we were in Orlando that just, that frankly hasn't been on national television in the last 10 years or has gotten the attention that in certain they deserved, and in certain times we didn't. So his time with the Magic will definitely go down in history as one of the best. So his press release was a little longer, just because I was writing it. His press release, it might have had an extra quote or two or a fact before I let that one go out. A lot of times when we're sending press releases out about trades, we want the focus to be on what we're getting. Like we want the attention to be, listen, here's what we're getting, here's what we've gotten, not necessarily what is going away. And so a lot of times when we're writing a press release, it's like, hey, we got this, we got this, we got this, we got that. Oh, and player A is leaving. He averaged like 15 points a game. It's no big deal. Like, fine.
It was okay.
I might have put in an extra paragraph or two about Vooch just because of his standing with the organization was so great.
Yeah.
So how early did you? Sorry, Paul. How early did you know in the day? Because the deadline was at 3 p.m., wasn't it? So
I knew at 7 a.m.
Right.
That was happening. Yeah, and then I think Adrian Wojnarowski broke it. But Adrian Wojnarowski or Shams breaks everything before it gets released. It's funny how that works. But so Wojnarowski I knew at 7 in the morning because I was just coming, like I said, I was just coming back from getting my COVID test, and it was very early in the morning, and I was just driving back into my neighborhood, and that's when my phone rang. So it was 7 a.m, and then I think we released it around. Woj broke it around noon, and I think at that point, we hurried things. Oh no, but we couldn't say anything until there's a trade call that has to go down with the NBA. Every time there's a trade, because that's where all your, the contracts get sent over to the league and they have to approve, and their lawyers have to, you have to dot I's and cross T's. So you can't release any trades, even though it's out there. It's out into the Twitterverse and everywhere else, and everybody knows it's happening. But you can't release it until the league has approved the trade. So I don't think they approved it actually till later in the afternoon. But I knew at 7 at that point that he was going. Yeah.
Cool. George, the Dante and Galante show was a favorite feature show of ours for many, many years.
You saw it in England?
Yeah.
Yeah. Every week.
Get out of here.
No,
our rating, we needed more people to watch.
We gave you 5 stars, don't worry.
Thank you.
So two questions on that.
Okay.
Why wasn't it called the Galante and Dante show?
That is a damn fine question, Grant. I ask that all the time. All the time. It should absolutely have been the Galante. And I always say, the way you pronounce my last name is Galante. Everybody, and it's happened my whole life, and I don't correct people because it's not that big a deal. Like, I've been called way worse, so if you're going to call me Galante, that's fine. Like I said, I've been called way worse. So if that's the worst that's going to happen, like, it's okay. And I told Dante, I was like, you know what? This should be the Galante and Dante show. Why do I have to change how I'm pronouncing my name just to fit you into the bill? So yeah, that's a good question. Next time, if you have Dante on, that should be the question that's asked to Dante. He's a glory hog. Cool. That's why that guy's a glory hog. He just wants all the attention to himself. He can't stand sharing the spotlight.
It's like the podcast, isn't it? The Pod Squad. It's the Dante pod.
Let's be honest. If Dante didn't run that podcast, that thing would go nowhere. that would be me spinning my tires, not knowing what direction to go. He's the best. He's the best.
No, he's very good. He's very good. But the second part of the question, what was your favorite moment or guest or ex-Magic player? I know you've had a good couple of ones with Turkoglu, Vucevic with the earpiece. What was your favorite one?
Gosh, that's a good question. We've had so many good moments. Like the Hedo Turkoglu, Hedo's such a good sport, because we're basically just making fun of him right to his face. And he's such a good sport and he doesn't care. And I remember when we had the idea, Dante had come up with the idea of what did Hedo just say. And then like you hear the idea and you're talking to each other and you're like, well, damn, like that's really rude. Like you're just point blank making fun of this guy, like right to his face. Like the guy, he's not from here. He's doing his best. And we're just going to blast this guy and make it a game. And I was like, you know what? Let me go ask him. Like, I'll go ask him. Like, what is he going to do? He's going to curse at me and hit me in the stomach. Like whatever, I'll go ask him. So I gave him I brought the idea to Turk about, hey, listen, this is something we want to do. Are you okay with it? Because I don't want you catching wind that like Dante and George are making fun of you. And then I got to deal with you every day. I have more things to deal with you than just this little TV show. And he goes, Georgie, whatever you want to do, that's fine. Whatever. Hey, I don't care. Well, he don't say, that's fine. That's good. So we just went with it and it was a blast. And that was a lot of fun. And like the best part was playing the game with him. Like when he played the game one time with him and he didn't know what he had said. And it was genuine. Like he honestly did not have any idea what he said. And so, we finished recording and we look at him, we're like, see, like, that's how it is to try to talk to you. Nobody knows what the hell you're saying. Like he was the best. And we had so many good, there really was so, like we had JJ Redick on the Pod Squad a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know if you guys remember this, like we used to throw a smoking jacket on him and sit him in front of a fire. I remember we went to we went to a Panera. There was a Panera Bread store, restaurant, and they had like this mock fireplace. And I remember we took him down there and we gave him a smoking jacket and we set up this camera and we just said, listen, like we're gonna rattle off like 20 of these, like, and and he's sitting there and he's got this smoking jacket on and he's just like, I wouldn't put cumin on that. It's like, and that's what JJ, just some of the things we did with those guys. And Ryan Anderson throwing grapes. We used to throw grapes off the terrace level of the Amway Center. Like, and then when I think about some of the stuff we did, like we did some wild stuff. Like we really did some crazy stuff, which, it's why I've never really sat back and like looked at it and all that, we had some good bits. We really had some good bits.
I think you need to bring it back, George.
It's, the problem is now is like the roster has so much turnover, is I got to get to know these guys a little better before I go. Like, it was easy to chum around and kind of rail on these guys when I knew them. But like I can't like take Wendell Carter into a room right now and like start ripping on him when I've known the guy for 2 weeks. Like I gotta build a little bit of a foundation first before I go blasting these guys. But no,
you've clearly got far more barriers than we have.
Yeah, that's right.
You just go for it.
I think the funniest Hedo one, I don't know if you remember this, when he went to Toronto and he struggled at the start of his career there.
Yeah.
And he got interviewed after he had a really good game. Do you remember what I'm going to say now?
His answer was ball.
Yeah.
What did you see? What did you think when you took that last shot? Ball. Wait, what?
Yeah. So last question then. So
this is it. There's no more after this.
Well, we can.
We can go.
Listen,
There's
not many times I'm on a podcast in England, so like I'm gonna milk this for all it's worth. So whatever you guys got, I'm ready.
Awesome. So what do you remember about the 2009 and 2010 Magic team? So the one that went to the finals and the conference finals teams, the trip to LA, the atmosphere in the Amway Arena.
Gosh, that was so, those runs, they were just, it's going to sound like a pun. Those were magical runs. I mean, they were just we've been through it all. And when I started with the Magic, I was 21 and we were in the finals, and you just kind of got the assumption like, well, damn, like our team is stacked. We're going to be in the finals for the next like 6-7 years. Like there's no doubt about it. Never made it back, never made it back. And then Shaq leaves and Penny leaves. And then you have Tracy McGrady, and he's one of the greatest players ever. Ever. But when you're in the middle of it, you don't really, you don't stop to realize the greatness of, say, a Tracy McGrady, and you're watching him every night, and we're making the playoffs, but we're not getting out of the first round. And so then you're back to the drawing board, you're back to the lottery. And then we draft Dwight and draft Jameer, and you bring in Richard, and you can see it building up. I mean, you can see, we had the team that made the playoffs that first year. I think it was 2007, where we
beat the
played,
Raptors.
The first time we lost to Detroit in the first round. That was Dwight's first, Dwight and Jameer's first experience of the playoffs. We lost to Detroit. And you could just, and I think it was that summer is when we signed Richard. And at that point you could see, we had a chance, you kind of didn't know how good we were going to be, but you knew we were going to be good. You knew we were going to be a top 4 team in the East. And you just had a feeling that we were going to be good. And like you said, we beat the Raptors in 2008 in the first round. And that was our first playoff win in, I think it was 12 years at that point, because the last time was 1996. And just it was just euphoria just to win the first round. It was just to win the first round was so gratifying and so satisfying after just such a long drought. And then we ended up, I think we lost to the Pistons again. In the second round, in the conference semis, and you knew we didn't have enough. You knew we didn't have enough, but we were getting there. Like you knew we were getting there, and you knew Dwight was going to get to a different level, and you knew Jameer was going to get to a different level. So you go into 2008-09, and I was fortunate enough, and I think I've said this story before. I was fortunate enough to Otis Smith involved us in everything. I mean, he was so great at involving us in everything. And we were fortunate enough to partake in a team dinner just before training camp kicked off in 2008-09. And I just always remember Stan Van Gundy and Otis went down the line. And this is from Dwight all the way down to the 15th guy on the roster, and went through their roles. Listen, Dwight, you're going to do this, 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 and this. And went down every guy, 15 down to the 15th guy. You're going to do, you're going to be there. You're going to stay ready to play. You're going to, this and that and the other. And just then and everybody is so, a lot of times and I've been in those dinners before, and a lot of times you're just like, and guys are checked out. They don't really whatever. And I just remember everybody they were even locked in at the dinner. I mean, and training camp was starting the next day, and the guys were just locked in to this, this pre-season speech. And I remember leaving there that night and thinking just like, we're going to be good. Like, we're going to be really, really good. And if we can figure it out, like, we're going to be scary. And we did, and we figured it out. Jameer going down was really hard when we lost him midway through. Because I think at that point, we were like 33-8 or 34-8, like something ridiculous when he went down. And you're thinking, well, oh crap, like, we'll still be good, but we won't now, you know, there's just a level. You guys have watched enough basketball to know now that, like, you know, there are certain teams that they can get to that level to win the title. And then there are going to be another level where, like, yeah, they're good playoff teams and they may win around, but they're not going anywhere past that. And you kind of, when Jameer initially went down, you kind of thought, well, maybe that's what we're going to be now. We'll win around and it'll, you know, we'll do what we did last year. But then, you know, Otis made the trade to get Skip. And Skip just fit perfect. Like, it was the perfect piece. He didn't have to be Jameer. You know, he didn't have to. Jameer was so good at scoring the ball. And Skip didn't have to do that, but Skip was really good at getting guys in the right spots. And he was a you know, great passer. He would hit the occasional shot. And the way we were so spaced out is that, you know, with, you know, we were, if you look back, like, everybody plays the way we did then now.
Yeah.
Like, we were so far ahead of what everybody, you know, there was no teams playing 4 out, 1 in when we were doing it. There was nobody doing it. We were the only ones. And as the years have gone on, like, they're taking our model, like that's, you know, some teams are now going 5 out. Like, it's just, there is no, you know, center. And so Skip fit great to where he would knock down the occasional 3. He would always get the guys in the right spot. He just didn't do too much. He stayed within himself. Richard picked up his game. He's probably the most underrated player we've ever had in Magic history, in my opinion. Just does all the little things, hits the biggest shots on the biggest stage. And we had all the pieces, like, and we entered the playoffs. I think we won 57 games that year, or 57, I think.
7. Yep.
And 57. And I remember we played Philly in the first round. Dante likes to, you have to ask Dante if you have him on again. So we felt really good going into the playoffs. We felt like we were one of the 3 teams in the East. Like, we felt like, okay, Cleveland, Boston, or us, like, the 3 of us can win this thing. Everybody else is kind of just there and they're going to fill out the 8. The 3 of us, we can win the East. And we were in, I remember we lost the first game to Philly. Oh no, it was game 1. We lost to Philly, or game 2.
No, game 1.
So, okay. So it's game 1. We lost to Philly and we're like, oh crap. But, like, you're not okay. Like, all right, they stole home court, but it's like, we still should be okay. And then we lost game 3 on a buzzer beater. It was like Thaddeus Young hit a layup. And we were in Philly and we had to spend the night because we were, you know, when you're in the playoffs, you're in the city for extended days. So, like, we're not going back home. Like, we're staying in Philly the whole time. And I was so angry after we lost the Philly game in game 3. And I went out that night and I tied one on. I was so mad. And I just all night long, all I kept saying, and this is anybody that was listening, strangers, whatever else, I'm like, we're going to do all this all year. We're going to lose to the Sixers. Are you kidding me? Like, you gotta be joking. This, like, and I just was fuming, and I let everybody know it till like 4 a.m. I wasn't having it. And so
sounds like me, George.
On a Tuesday?
Yeah. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
So, you know, so we go back, we play game 4. Hito hits the big shot in game 4. And once Hito hit that big shot in game 4, we just knew that was done. Like, we just knew that series was over. And even then, like, even in game 6, like, you kind of were a little nervous because Dwight got suspended because of the technicals. Yeah. And we were missing somebody else. I don't remember who, but Courtney was out because he got dinged by Dwight's elbow. So he was still not playing at that point. You know, so JJ Redick and Marcin Gortat were starting, and Marcin had probably the best game of his career. Like, to this day, probably had the best game of his career that night. We beat the Sixers. And then we had that run against the Celtics, which was a great series. You know, all the numbers were against us in the Boston series to not win that series. I think they were 32 or 31-0 or 32-0 when they host a game 7 in a playoff series all time in Boston, and we dump trucked them. And my wife was there, which was great because I flew my wife up for the game for game 7. and just to, Boston's a tough place to play. Like those fans they're knowledgeable and they're rowdy, and they are into it and they love their Celtics, and they never had a shot to get into the game. I mean, we hit them in the mouth from the jump ball.
Really?
Hito was awesome and Dwight was awesome, and JJ was great. I mean, all our guys. I mean, Petrus hit big shots that night. We could not miss that night, and we dump trucked them good, and that was a great feeling. And then, like the Boston series, I think scared us more than the Cleveland series. I think we really felt like that we could match up with Cleveland, as good as anybody, if not better, because they really had no answer for Richard or Turk. Like you could put LeBron on one of them, but you couldn't put LeBron on both of them. And so whatever direction you went, the other guy is going to get you. Like, and they also like, listen, Dwight was doing his thing and he was fantastic against Ilgauskas. But they really had no answer. They really had no matchup answer for the Richard and Hito 3-4 combo. They just didn't. And honestly, like, I think everybody believes, and I do too, like if LeBron doesn't hit that crazy shot at the end of game 2, like we sweep them, we would have swept them. And that would have been, instead of having the series go 6, like we would have swept them. That would have been the end of them. But then to make it to the finals, the thing about 09, like, and that was a great run, but the advantage that LA had over us is that they had been there before. They had been there the year before. And so the finals, I mean, none of our guys had experienced that before. The lights are brighter. The interviews are longer. The attention.
The goaltends aren't cold.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. It just, I think that the magnitude of the finals, it took us, like, I mean, you could see it in game 1, like we came out and we were just starstruck of everything. Yeah. And you can't afford, in the playoffs, you can't afford to give possessions away, let alone games. And that game 1, we had no shot, but it really was strictly because, in my opinion, we were in awe of the finals. And then if you look at the rest of the games, I mean, like game two was game 2, right? Like nip and tuck, we're a missed layup away from winning it. Game 3, we won, we shoot the ball lights out. Game 4 is another one where, like, listen,
free throws.
We hit free throws down the end, we win that one. I mean, that was probably the closest 5-game, you can look at it on paper and be like, oh, well, LA kicked Orlando's rear. Like, not really. Like, we were pretty, I mean, we beat, and we also felt very confident against the Lakers too, because we had beat them twice during the year. Yeah. And so that's why going into 10, so like that was the fight. And then going into 10, we had a different team. We had Vince Carter. We didn't have Hito. And so you did feel like, I do feel like that team was better. I feel like and the same thing, we hit our stride going into the playoffs. We killed, we dump trucked Charlotte, we dump trucked Atlanta. Yeah. And so, like, we're just on this roll. And the games are not close. They're not close. And so we had felt like if we get LA again, or if we get to the finals again, that's it. Like, it's going to be game over, because we're not going to have that same feeling going in. Like, we know now what the finals are, and we know what they bring, and we know the magnitude of it. And Boston just, they those 2 games were just like, it's 1 possession games. And it stinks, because I really do think, I do think we were a better team than the Lakers that year, because the Lakers ended up winning the championship again in 10. And I don't think that would have happened again. We would have had home court advantage against the Lakers that year, as opposed to the way it was the year before, where LA had it against us. That is definitely a missed opportunity that I long for to this day, and I probably will till I'm dead, because you just don't. I mean, you see it now. Like, you just these opportunities, when you have them, you got to try to seize them if you can, because they're not guaranteed. You don't know what's going to happen. And then look at it since. I mean, we haven't been to the conference finals or the conference semifinals since 2010. For somebody like me, that's a long time, man. That's a long time to go through it. But those were two great Magic teams, with great guys, all of them great guys, really good.
And the thing is, in 2010, we weren't a surprise that year. People knew what to expect, and not just that. Yeah. They also had because Kevin Garnett was missing in 2009, and he was a factor in 2010, wasn't he?
He definitely was, but I think, Mikey, you're right. I think like going in 2009, nobody expected anything of the Magic. Like we were just in the way of the puppet show. Like you know what I mean? We were just in the way of LeBron versus Kobe in the finals. We were just there. Hey, it's nice. Orlando made the conference finals. Who cares? They didn't really take us seriously. Whereas the next year, you're right. Like we're not sneaking up on anybody. Everybody knows we're for real, and everybody knows we're coming. And it just, Kevin Garnett was a factor. I still think, if we had to do it over again, you take those two teams. I just don't think I'm biased, obviously, because I bleed Magic blue, and that's what that's who I root for. But if we had that series again, it would not turn out the same. It just wouldn't.
George, the 2010 team, which you said you preferred to the 2009 team, if you put that against the 95 team, who would win, in your opinion?
That 95 team was stacked. Boy, that's you put me on the spot, Grant. They would fight to the death. No, that 95 team was so good. Penny and Nick and Dennis Scott and Horace, and that's such a balanced team. That's an interesting one, though. I do think the 95 team was probably better, but it's also a different era of ball too. Like it's a completely different era of basketball. 14 years later against that other team. It's a different style. I don't know, like we had better shooters on the 2009 and 10 team than they did in 95, because like Penny,
Nick and Dennis. Yeah,
you had Nick and you had Dennis, and Penny could shoot, Penny would hit the 3 too. But like you take the other teams, you got Dwight, Jameer, Dwight, I keep saying Dwight, Jameer, Richard, Hito,
JJ
and JJ, and Courtney Lee was 38%. Like, we had a lot of shooters on those 2009, 2010 teams that really, it's a tough match. I don't know if Horace could go out and guard Richard. I don't know if that had, like, Horace was good, like down on the block and 15 feet and out. Like if you got to send Horace out to, now, like he'll see this and be like, "Are you kidding me? Like I can guard any of those."
He can come on. We'd be happy for him to come on and debate it.
So like that's a good video game, right? Can't you do that on the video games? Put in who plays who and let them go at it, right? Yeah. That's a good video game question.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. So we record again on Sunday, May the 2nd, with UK Magic fan Chris Page. Before that time, we have 5 games to play. So we start off with a visit from the Indiana Pacers on Sunday. It's a 1 a.m. tip here in the UK. Second night of a back-to-back for the Pacers. They beat us 2 weeks ago. They've got some significant injuries to Sabonis, Turner, and TJ Warren, who are all out for their game tonight. We then have the Lakers on Monday, our back-to-back. Anthony Davis is likely to be back. No LeBron. We'll see where we go with them. Then it's the Cavs on Wednesday night, midnight tip here in the UK. Probably, arguably, the most significant game we've got this week in consideration of the lottery positions. So far this season, when we have played the Cavs twice, we've won. And to the moment, game day 7, I know a lot's changed, but that's our least points conceded in a game and our largest margin of victory against any team this season against the Cavs. Friday, we have the Grizzlies, 1 a.m. tip here in the UK. They've only got Mr. Valanciunas out on their injury report. It's our first meeting of the season with the one-man highlight reel that is Ja Morant. We play them on a back-to-back. First time is Friday in Memphis, and then back in the Amway on Saturday, again a 1 a.m. tip. And they were interesting. One of those teams that have got a better road record than they have home. So predictions, guys.
Wait, hold on. Let me ask you guys a question. So when these games tip off at midnight and 1 a.m., like, are you watching them live, or what? How are you watching these games over there?
Shall we be honest?
Yes.
It depends how well the team are doing. At this moment in time, I am honestly a get up in the morning and watch it once the league pass has been edited.
Okay.
Normally,
right, how long does it take to watch an edited game? 45 minutes?
Hour 40.
Hour and 40, hour and 45, something of that nature.
Okay.
Normally, I've got to be honest, I think when it's pre-COVID times, the in-game entertainment was better, the whole programming was better to watch live. It's not as entertaining to watch live at the moment. So I think most of us are
asleep.
I was just curious now, now if the team's doing better, what are you doing? Are you staying up are you waiting until midnight, 1 a.m. and watching?
I think when we qualified for the playoffs in the 2018-19 season, I think we were all up watching the Boston game. Everybody was up.
Then what happens at work? What happens at work the next day, fellas? Like
you fight through. You fight through.
Power through.
Loads of coffee.
Or
who
Bud
cares?
Light,
I'm retired,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're Grant, you take another Bud Light. There you go. Yeah, that still works.
I say, who cares? I'm retired.
Oh, there you go. All right. Well, I was just curious. You're reading off these times. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's late.
I will tell you, George, that a good percentage of the people who watch and listen to this are staying up. We have some real hardcore fans who are, even if it's a West Coast game tipping off at 3-4 in the morning, they will be up watching.
Yeah, because that's still for me, and I'm in the States.
And they're talking on Twitter in a group that we've got set up. They're talking amongst one another. Yeah, so it's very active.
Good to know. Good to know.
Twitter's funny because we see the old comments, don't we, from some of our followers in the States. And they'll go, oh no, we've got a 10 p.m. tip off tonight. I feel really sorry for you.
I will never complain. I will never complain about the 10 or 10:30 tip off again. I will never complain.
Smallest violin.
Never complain again. No way.
So George, what do you see us doing this week?
What
prediction?
Well,
you don't have to wear your Orlando Magic hat if you don't want. You can be honest.
I think it's going to be tough. it depends on who we can get back from the injury report that you read off so beautifully at the beginning. Like we're a different team when, let's say, James Ennis and Terrence Ross and Wendell Carter Jr., if those guys are healthy, it just allows Cliff a little more flexibility on who to play and how long to play minutes and where to play guys. I mean, we've had so many games this year where we're asking guys to do things that they've never done in their basketball career. We're asking James Ennis to play power forward. We're asking Chuma to play 32 minutes. There's a lot of things that we've asked guys to do as the year's gone on that they're not used to doing. So I think a lot of it will depend on who's able to suit up that night. Are we going to have our full contingent of guys? If we're going to have our full contingent of guys, then we'll give some of these teams a run. We'll play hard and hopefully, like I said before, like Cliff is going to prepare and have these guys ready to win. They were prepared to win, and it's going to be on them then at that point to translate it to the court.
Mikey.
I'm gonna go 5-0. No, I'm not. Sorry. I'm gonna go glass half full, 1-4.
Oh, Mikey, no.
God damn.
Who are we beating?
I actually think we're going to beat the Grizzlies. I think we're going to beat them on one of the back-to-back games. We've won 3 straight. They're 5-5 in the last 10 games, and like we said, Valanciunas isn't playing, so we might have a better chance of rebounding the ball with him not playing. So that might be a slight advantage. I mean,
in fairness, mate, he could be back because it's only concussion. I say only concussion.
Sorry. Only.
After missing,
he might not be able to do the podcast. Yeah,
exactly, mate. He won't do the post-game interviews. Oh dear, I've really set myself up again, haven't I?
Yep.
So you're going 1 and 4.
Yeah.
G.
Between 1 and 4 and 2 and 3.
We already said we're beating the Lakers.
Yes, we're beating the Los Angeles Lakers. That was the one. I don't know if Anthony Davis is going to play. I think they might just take it easy with him. So, he could be down to, load management. So here's hoping. And that's the one team I'd like to beat out of the 29 other teams in the NBA. So let's go with a win against the Lakers and possibly the Cavs. But to be safe, and because this is a competition, I'll go 1 and 4.
So you guys keep tracking predictions, and you see. All right, so who's winning? Who's winning? Do we get to hear after you make your predictions who's winning? Grant's winning.
Yeah.
Even though Grant's drunk the whole time, he's still winning.
That's how he wins.
Maybe that's the key.
That's how he wins. Yeah, you guys are playing this all wrong.
We're looking at we're looking at it seriously. G just goes, "Hey, how drunk am I? How many beers have I had? That's how many I'm going with."
Perfect.
That's how many we've been.
I'm liking his strategy better than you guys right now, to be honest. Grant, are you far ahead? Are you way ahead?
But
it's close.
You're 2 in front, mate.
Two ahead.
Yeah, you've got 5, and the English contingent have both got 3.
That's a pretty 2 this late is pretty good.
It's about the only thing Wales win, though, isn't it, G? Hey?
Yeah, you're right, man. You're right there.
Well, as usual, I'm going different to you, Per. I'm being more confident. I think that we beat the Cavs, and I also think we take one against Memphis. And I'm thinking, I do fancy us against the Lakers because we do tend to do quite well against them at times, the season record. So I'm going 3 and 2. Let's go for a good week.
Are you drunk as well?
It's all the heroin I do.
Paul just took this thing to a whole different level.
Yeah, I'm like that every week.
I was towing the line, and Paul just went right off the rails.
Oh man, no. If there's a line, I'm always beyond it.
Okay.
So, make sure that everybody, as we come to the close, let's just say, please, everybody if you're not following us on our socials, please make sure that you are doing Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Check out the website. If you are shopping, I'm going to make a shameless plug. Please use our affiliate links off the website or off the socials because it helps us pay for what we do here. And if you are shopping, also use the Magic UK 10 discount code for 10% off Fanatics and NBA Store Europe, but some exclusions may apply. So, George, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. It really has.
No, it's my pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
And Mikey, Geraint, thank you as always for your company. And until next time, Magic fans, let's go Magic.
So today's medical drama, can we officially class that as a bacon slice?
Yes. That is fun.
I'm having that. I love that. Do you know what, mate?
And we've started.
In 53 years, that is the most original bacon gag I've heard about this surname. Well done, mate. Top job.
That joke was sizzling.
Oh, please. You know how much I love David Steele and Jeff Turner, but that is starting to really grate on me, all the bacon puns. I could do without it. Yeah. I know I've not mentioned it in the group chat that we had.
It's starting to sound a bit smoky about it all now.
Is it getting you a bit frazzled?